And then, Kenneth Starr testifies about the renewal of the Independent Counsel Statute. Now, coverage of the military action in Yugoslavia from the state-run Serbian television news. It runs about 40 minutes.
You're watching the primetime news of Radio Television Serbia. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The President of the Republic of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko, came to an official visit to Federal Republic of Yugoslavia. The President of the Republic of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko, came to an official visit of Federal Republic of Yugoslavia. The President was received in full honor ceremony in front of the residence of the President. The President of Yugoslavia, Milosevic, and the President of Belarus, Lukashenko, greeted each other cordially, followed by the tunes of the national anthems of both states. After the two anthems, Presidents Milosevic and Lukashenko marched along the honor guard of the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia and bowed in front of the Yugoslav flag. The President of the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia, Slobodan Milosevic, presented to the President Lukashenko several high officials from the Yugoslav government, among them the Vice President of the Federal Government Nikola Šajnović, the Federal Minister of Foreign Affairs Živadin Jovanović, the Foreign Trade Minister Borisa Vuković, the Chief of Staff of the Military of Yugoslavia, Lieutenant General Šušić, and the Secretary General of the President, Goran Milinović. President Lukashenko afterwards presented to President Milosevic the members of the delegations accompanying him, the Foreign Affairs Minister and Vice President of the Government of Belarus, Ural Tipov, the Secretary General of the Security Council of Belarus, Viktor Šejman, and other officials. Afterwards, they held many official discussions, the first meeting between President Milosevic and President Lukashenko. After the meeting and many official meetings subsequently, President Milosevic and President Lukashenko had this press conference. I would like above all to express my great satisfaction because of the visit of the President of Belarus, Mr. Lukashenko, whose arrival here in Belgrade as a head of a state delegation of Belarus is something that we regard as a sign of great solidarity of the people of Belarus and the government of Belarus with the people of Yugoslavia in these difficult times when when our whole country indeed is exposed to a criminal aggression of the NATO alliance. This aggression is being justified by so-called care for human rights, while it violates all human rights and all norms of the international law. To make this irony even greater, there are more words on justifying an increase in the intensity of this aggression for the credibility, as they say, of the NATO alliance. I don't believe that there is a single honest person on this planet who can feel that the credibility can be gained by murder. Murder can only be to the credibility of a murderer. In this aggression to which we are exposed, we have only one way out, and this is to defend our country. And I would like to say, on behalf of all citizens of our country, that we shall manage to defend our country. As far as the political solution of the problems in Kosovo, we feel that the political solution is the only possible way out of this crisis that exists over there. Our position is only by peaceful means can we secure, only through a political process can we secure a stable peace and a just peace, and all of the solutions that will be just and humane for all national communities and all citizens of Kosovo. You know very well that our fundamental approach is based on the principle of the equality of all citizens and the equality of all ethnic communities in Kosovo. This means that our approach is multi-ethnic, multicultural, multi-religious. That is to say, an approach that takes into consideration of all people and all ethnic communities in Kosovo, regardless of their ethnicity or their religion or any other ethnic characteristic. This is why it is so absurd that at the end of the 20th century, anyone in our civilized world can be undecided between this approach, which is multicultural, multi-ethnic, and this Nazi approach that favors one nation that wants to impose itself as a master of all other nations. We believe that our approach that takes into consideration equality of all communities will be the basis for a permanent solution of the Kosovo situation. This is how we conduct our political process. This is how we are conducting discussions among representatives of the government of Serbia and the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia and representatives of the Kosovo Albanians. We believe that these discussions have to be direct. As you know, they're being conducted directly, and we believe that only in this way, that is to say, by means of direct discussion among those representatives of the national groups that live in Kosovo, only such discussion will resolve the problems in Kosovo in a real way. The problems have to be resolved by the people who live in that province, nobody from outside, no matter what kind of imposed solution they give. Our goal is peace, and our goal is equality of people and all of the ethnic communities. And this is the goal that we shall live by. Our goal is to defend our country, and this is a goal that we shall live by. We consider that both law and justice are with these goals. And we believe there is an ever greater support of the freedom-loving world for these goals of ours. In addition, I would also like to say that President Lukashenko and I had an opportunity for a detailed consideration of the questions that pertain to the union of Russia, Belarus, and Yugoslavia. You know very well that our federal government, at a joint session of both houses, unanimously passed a decision on the accession of the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia to the Union of Russia and Belarus. Today, to the President Lukashenko, I presented two official letters, one to him as a President of Belarus and a member of this union, but also as a presiding member of the Council of Russia and Belarus. So one letter for him and one official letter for the President of the Russian Federation, Boris Nikolaevich Yeltsin. I expect from President Lukashenko and President Yeltsin that all procedures regarding the finalization of this agreement be implemented in accordance with the interests of the people of these three countries and the goals implied therein. We assess, both of us, that this is a great historic step in the interest of the integration, in the interest of development, of stability, security, economic, cultural, technological, and all other kinds of development at the threshold of a new century. And we believe that this union will show its vitality in the years ahead of us and at the beginning of the next century. At the end, I would like to say that these discussions were conducted also about our mutual economic relations that are very intense and that are continually growing, and we came to certain specific agreements in the discussions that were also conducted by the authorized ministers from both delegations. Finally, I would like to thank to President Lukashenko to this visit, to the great support, to the expressed friendship, solidarity and support for our people, and also to express our conviction in our future together and the future of Europe, without imposition and dictates, Europe of free citizens, of free peoples, of equality. We shall work together for such a Europe, because this Europe belongs to all people and all countries that comprise Europe. Thank you very much. Comrades, ladies and gentlemen, respected President Milosevic, I'm very grateful for these nice words to the Belarusian people and their president. I'm very happy that you understand our sincere position for its real value. And now regarding the substance of our discussions. As you saw, the negotiations had two phases. This was a very long and serious discussion with analysis of all aspects of our bilateral relations. There was analysis of all problems connected with the war in this beautiful country. We came here only with one goal, just at least for a few millimeters more, bring peace closer to the Slavic country, to a country inhabited not only by Slavic people, but also representatives of about 26 different nations, representatives of so many nations and ethnic and religious communities. Our goal is to contribute to a peaceful solution of this conflict in accordance with the goals of President Milosevic and the expectations of the Yugoslav people. I was convinced that President Milosevic is seeking a solution for this problem and that he wants all of the other issues to be resolved in a peaceful manner. In regard to this, we considered the whole range of problems, from the problem of humanitarian assistance to political questions. The most important result of today's meeting, both for me personally and for those with whom I will discuss further these negotiations, is that I saw the limit beyond which Yugoslavia is not going to make any concessions to find compromise for the Kosovo crisis. President Milosevic, as a good friend of mine, told me, this is the limit beyond which we cannot make any concessions. Several times I asked him, are there possible any steps backward, retreat, in order to make many moves forward? And he responded to me, no, this is the last limit beyond which our people and our leadership cannot go, which means we have to have this into consideration in all our future actions. Not only the actions of Belarus and Russia, but all states, including the states of NATO. We have to take into consideration that this position of Yugoslavia is final, that we have to understand it as a final position, and that there won't be any concessions from it. I have to openly tell you that this position of Yugoslavia that I saw here consists of the following. Yugoslavia is ready to accept on the territory of Kosovo civilian observers. The Organization of the United Nations or representatives of similar organizations. But civilian, not military, paramilitary or police. And not from states connected with the NATO aggression against Yugoslavia. These have to be representatives that are not from those NATO states that participate today in the bombardment of Yugoslavia. Was this correctly stated? Therefore, this is the limit behind which Yugoslavia cannot make any more concessions. And the President of Yugoslavia answered all of my questions that sometimes perhaps were not completely correct, but as a friend, I had the right to ask them. In the first place, I saw that the President is seeking a peaceful resolution of this conflict. It's not important who are the refugees that he wants to return to their homes. It's not important for him which ethnicity these refugees belong to, which religion they belong to. He is talking about citizens of Yugoslavia, and this is something we want to hear. This is the same policy that we are conducting in Belarus, recognizing the equality of all people and religious groups. We also considered the question of the union of Yugoslavia with Belarus and Russia. I'm the President of the Higher Council of the Union of Russia and Belarus, that is to say, the specific body that would make the final decision regarding the proposal of Yugoslavia to join this Union of Russia and Belarus. President Milosevic had also earlier sent messages to the President of Russia and myself, in which he had spoken of many questions, including, among others, a union with Russia and Belarus. The desire of Yugoslavia to be part of that union. Today, I received a letter addressed to myself and one letter to the President of the Russian Federation, in which all of the specifics of the request of Yugoslavia are being officially explained, so that its desire to be considered for the Union be considered as soon as possible. The letter that through me is being sent to the President of Russia will be handed, and this question will be on the agenda of the next session of the High Council of Russia and Belarus. I will also give my contribution so that the Parliamentary Assembly of the Union of Russia and Belarus begins to consider this question as soon as possible. It was very nice to hear, as a denial of all speculations, that President Milosevic says that by making this movement towards union with Russia and Belarus, he does not want in any way to create further conflicts. I was pleasantly surprised that he stated, I do understand that this is not a simple process. Perhaps it will require a lot of time. And I said to this that we shall do everything in our power to resolve this question as soon as possible. So that Yugoslav people do not think that we are protracting this decision. But we have to resolve this question cleanly and very specifically according to procedures and its content. We also discussed a number of economic issues and economic assistance of humanitarian nature, as far as the support for agriculture and the population at large as well. And today I appointed a man who will be in charge of this great job. He will be a mediator between the two presidents. This is my assistant for special tasks, Viktor Puczynski, who recently arrived here with a convoy of humanitarian assistance, and thereupon also prepared the security detail during my visit here. Once again, I would like to stress and respond to the question of the journalists. I'm sure I will be asked that question. What is new after this meeting? What was new that was contributed to the compromise among the warring parties? Once again, I would stress the new quality is in the fact that President Milošević defined the line beyond which he and his people will never go. This is the line they draw about the integrity of Yugoslavia and the equality of all those who have lived and continue to live on the territory of Yugoslavia. The participation of civilian officials in monitoring the process in Kosovo, without participation of those countries that are currently bombarding Yugoslavia. We understand this position, and as soon as possible we'll consider all the proposals and requests expressed by President Milošević in the discussion with the Russian party. Because during this meeting, I also represented the attitudes of the Russian Federation, because I had been asked by them to relay to the President of Yugoslavia, which is what I did. Thank you very much. The President of the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia, Slobodan Milošević, and his guest, the President of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko, and the members of the delegation had one more plenary session discussing future cooperation between the two states and other current issues. On the spacious platform in front of the presidential palace, the President of the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia, Milošević, bid his farewell to the President of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko. At the farewell ceremony, there were also the President's Foreign Affairs Advisor Bojan Bugarčić, the Secretary General of the President of the Republic Goran Milinović, Lieutenant General Slavomir Šušić, the Minister of Foreign Trade Borislav Vuković, the Minister of Foreign Affairs Živadin Jovanović, the Vice President of the Federal Government Nikola Šainović, President Milošević bid farewell to the closest associates of President Lukashenko. President of the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia, Slobodan Milošević, and the President of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko, exchanged friendly farewells, once again symbolically confirming the relations between the two countries and the two peoples. President of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko, later this afternoon left Belgrade. President of the Republic, Slobodan Milošević, received today Gregor Gysi, the leader of the Democratic Socialist Party of Germany. The respected German politician, head of his party delegation in Bundestag, condemned NATO aggression against Yugoslavia and acquainted President Milošević with the attitude of his party's strong opposition to these criminal attacks of NATO against the people of Yugoslavia. Despite these unprecedented media manipulations, the citizens of Germany are against this horrible vandalism, the greatest vandalism after Second World War. President Milošević expressed his conviction that the freedom fight of our people will be stronger over the forces that want not only to occupy our country, but impose themselves and their dictate on free countries. The people of Yugoslavia are determined to stay on this line of defense, and they're not alone. Citizens of Europe do not understand why their countries have really violated international laws and norms, and why this murdering of civilians and barbaric destruction of civilian facilities are for the rule of the strongmen. The meeting was also attended by the Federal Minister for Foreign Affairs, Živadin Jovanović. The President of the Republic of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko, after the discussions with the President of Yugoslavia, Slobodan Milošević, visited the military teaching hospital, and as you saw, our dear viewers, he left our country later in the afternoon. Attended by the Vice President of Yugoslavia, Nikola Šainović, and the Republic's Minister of Health, President Lukashenko, came to the military teaching hospital. The head of this renowned institution, Lieutenant General Professor Aco Jovičić, showed to President Lukashenko the consequences of the evil NATO bombardment, which also damaged the hospital building itself. This hospital treats all civilian casualties regardless of their ethnicity. This is an Albanian. And from where? From which part? From Prizren. How do you feel here? I went to Prizren to buy something, and all of a sudden I heard some gunshots. I didn't know what was going to happen. And he fell. Was this a bomb. And he's very wounded, right? President Lukashenko was particularly interested in the health condition of the patients, the place and the manner in which they were injured, and he really warmly wished to each one a quick recovery. Especially moving were the scenes in the intensive care units where we have citizens who have just been operated after their injuries during this evil bombardment. This is where also the heart patients are being treated, who during the shock from the bombardment had heart attacks or were also injured by fallen broken glass. A bomb attack of the refugees moving along the road Đakovica-Prizren prompted the President of Serbia Milan Milutinovic to give the statement. Today's massacre of the Albanian civilians who were coming home during the day discloses NATO in its full brutality. To bomb 4 times a line of refugees cannot be explained as a mistake. It was done on purpose. The Republic of Serbia and all of its citizens are horrified by the suffering of the Albanians with this evil act committed by the NATO aviation. We have sorrow for these dozens of innocent civilians. Their only sin was simply that they were part of our fatherland. This evil is without precedent in more recent history, and it's the deed of those who appeal to human rights and freedoms, and they especially engage themselves, as they say, to protect Albanian citizens. The manner in which they're covering their so-called protégés is so cruel and brutal that causes disbelief and abhorrence both with Serbs and throughout the world for this most horrid massacre committed in Yugoslavia. Those who gave the orders for this revolting slaughter will have to answer to the court of all humanity. The fight of Serbia for freedom and equality of all people regardless of ethnicity and faith after this criminal deed by the NATO aviation has real significance. All of our people and our country will oppose those who simply want to impose rule with cold-blooded murder. Despite their attempts, we shall secure common life, justice and equality for all people of Kosovo and the Republic of Serbia, concludes the statement of Mr. Milan Milutinovic. The evil NATO army continues to hit civilian attacks, most often killing women, children and people. This can no longer be denied by the mad commanders of these attacks, however much they try to show them as mistakes. Today's crime of the beastly pilots over the civilians near Đakovica cannot be justified by anything, and therefore these criminals will have to answer to justice sooner or later. The criminal NATO alliance, close to the villages of Madana and Meja near Đakovica, bombarded a large line of refugees, Albanian refugees going back to their homes. At least 70 people were killed and over 100 have been injured. All of the injured people have been transferred to the hospital in Prizren. They were coming on tractors and cars. There were several thousand Albanian refugees going back to their homes. This line, which was comprised primarily of children and women and old people, was hit twice. The NATO criminals did this purposefully and consciously. It's very clear that you have to be able to differentiate military from civilian targets like this. The bombardment of the civilians shows once again that the NATO doesn't allow the refugees to go back to their homes because they want to execute this under their control and command so as to justify the arrival of NATO troops on Kosovo and occupation of Kosovo. It was shown that these refugees are simply victims for NATO and bargaining chip for NATO to realize its goals, despite the fact that the criminals continually try to present themselves as protectors of the Albanians in Kosovo. The Information Office of the Joint Chiefs of Staff of Yugoslavia announced that the chronicles of the evil committed by the aggressor are becoming more monstrous with each day. After the bombing massacre of the train passengers in Grdelica, today in Kosovo, the hand of the criminal committed the worst evil deed yet in this aggression, killing several dozen citizens, primarily women, children and old people, and wounding still more. 4 times there were attacks on the columns of Albanian civilians who were coming back to their homes escorted by our security forces. The number of all the victims in the genocidal attack is huge, but the exact list of all of the people who were killed or injured during this monstrous attack is yet to be determined. The commander of Pristina Corps, General Lazarevic, and an expert team are working on that. This is stated by the Joint Chief of Staff of Yugoslav Command. Russia has a very important role in seeking a political solution for for the Kosovo crisis and stopping the NATO aggression on Yugoslavia. This is what Western allies are beginning to recognize, and they count on Russia's help. Russia's President Yeltsin appointed the former Russian Prime Minister as a special envoy for Yugoslavia. By official decree of President Yeltsin, Viktor Chernomyrdin, former Prime Minister of Russia, has been appointed as a special envoy for Yugoslavia, directly tasked with resolving the crisis in Yugoslavia. This means that Chernomyrdin will be a direct negotiator in all of the initiatives that Russia will undertake in the future. Chernomyrdin stated that the solution for the crisis exists, and one has to use, especially this moment, where there is no victor nor defeated party. Chernomyrdin believes that one should intensify all of the diplomatic activities of Moscow, especially in their contacts with the American side, especially with the Democrats getting ready for a new election. Viktor Chernomyrdin expressed his readiness that as soon as there is an opportunity, he travel to Washington and discuss on highest level about stopping NATO aggression and going back to political negotiation. Duma today received a letter of the Yugoslav ambassador to Russia, Borislav Milosevic, that gives the official announcement that Yugoslavia wants to join the Union of Russia and Belarus. The president of Duma, Gennady Seleznyov, assigned specific tasks to the legal committees and foreign affairs committees who are to prepare the necessary projects as well as the documents and submit them to President Yeltsin to sign. The General Staff of Russian Armed Forces announced today that 8 ships from the Black Sea Fleet are to pass through Bosphorus between 15th and 22nd of April. These are combat and patrol ships that are being sent to the Mediterranean. The Russian Foreign Minister Igor Ivanov, who has just returned from Oslo, stated that without Belgrade's consent there can be no military operation in Kosovo. This would not be an operation to secure peace, but simply an operation of enforcing nature, stated Ivanov. Ivanov also noted that due to the aggression of NATO against Yugoslavia, even Americans can see that the situation has become much more grave than in Rambouillet or Paris, because now we have to begin really a political process of regulating this crisis. The government of the Republic of Serbia at the session presided by Mirko Marjanovic considered the results of the measures undertaken in response to the consequences of the evil bombardment of economic, infrastructural, residential and other facilities, bombardments committed by NATO, which have led to civilian casualties. The government attended especially to the activities within the comprehensive economic and social plan for assistance to the workers of those factories that were heavily damaged by the NATO aggressors. The measures that have been undertaken will provide urgent assistance for all of the employees in the factories that can no longer function. Wherever there is possible, there are repairs underway of the factories so as to begin the production activities again. Primary focus will be on additional and alternative employment programs and securing social security of the workers who, due to this NATO aggression, have no work. Noting the continued performance of production tasks, the government assigned special tasks to appropriate ministries to intensify the measures for greater activation of the production plants and secure production greater than at present moment. This permanent task requires the engagement of the chambers of commerce and various workers' unions, who within this economic framework have a special role to increase the production and the exports. The Executive Council of the Socialist Party of Serbia, at the session presided by the General Secretary Gorica Gajevic, considered the priority economic policies in these conditions of criminal aggression against our country, as well as the tasks of the Socialist Party. Unable to win over our forces, the NATO criminals are expressing their fury over civilian targets, the destruction of bridges, of factories, of houses. They're trying to stop all of the communication, weaken our defense, and prevent the supply of the population and destroy our people and nation. This is why the production and the export and the industry and agriculture are all in the function of the defense of the country and the satisfaction of the vital needs of the citizens. All activities are successfully being conducted, and we have begun the repairs of the damaged facilities. The Socialist Party of Yugoslavia supports the government initiative to give both urgent assistance to the workers programs as well as work through additional and auxiliary programs in all of those factories that can continue to work. There'll be reconstruction of some of the destroyed factories and the infrastructure facilities. The successful implementation of these measures requires that all subjects fulfill their financial obligations so that we can have currency stability as well as regular budgetary activities. The NATO aggressor didn't manage to break us in a military fashion. They won't break us in an economic way either. We are all ready and maximally ready to continue to produce and to work and satisfy the vital needs of our citizens. The aggressor alliance, both last night and this morning, bombed Valjevo, the Piroteria, Nova Varoš and Požega in a barbaric attack of the NATO alliance around 3:30 this afternoon, south of Vranje. 2 civilians were killed, 1 is severely injured, and there is huge material damage in the nearby village of Pavlovac, where there are no military or special purpose facilities. 1 missile hit a gypsy neighborhood, killing 2 people, inflicting huge material damage. This morning, around 5:30 in the morning, the NATO aggressor attacked the urban center of Valjevo. The target was here the greatest Valjevo factory, Krušik, but also the hospital, the agricultural school, some of the residential areas. The factory, Krušik, was visited by Milomir Minić, President of the Assembly, Života Ćosić, a minister in the government of Serbia, Branko Savić and Slobodan Đoković, their deputy ministers, Aleksa Jokić, director of the Postal Service, and other public figures. They cannot destroy our will, our readiness, our unity to defend our country from the aggression. This is our first task. However, simultaneously, we have the task to be equally energetic and equally powerful. Just as we defend our country, we shall renew our country and we shall reconstruct our Krušik factory. We agreed today that we undertake this job immediately. None of the workers will be alone. 5 people were injured in this factory, 3 of them more seriously, and they have been kept in the Valjevo hospital, but their lives are not in danger. Last night, around midnight, several aggressor missiles hit the area of Nova Varoš. The action of this criminal air force damaged significantly a railroad bridge on the river Lim, destroyed the electric lines towards Prijepolje and Nova Varoš, and many villages were left without power. The hydroelectric plant Bistrica and many surrounding houses have broken windows. The material damage is large. 4 missiles hit the Požega village of Prijenović, damaging many village houses. Pristina was also last night once again target of the NATO aviation. 2 houses very close to the Coca-Cola factory plant were destroyed in the last night's attack. The anti-aircraft units this morning targeted and downed 1 unmanned plane. Today around 11 there was a new attack on Prizren. At 1 o'clock this morning, the evil aggressors bombarded targets at Bajer near Kosovska Mitrovica. The explosion caused many windows to break on civilian objects. The German Defense Ministry confirmed today that one of the German unmanned planes failed to return to their base after the Kosovo mission, reports the news agency France Press. The President of the Interim Council of Kosovo, Zoran Anđelković, spoke to the managers of public companies and enterprises, telling that despite the daily criminal attacks of NATO and the material damage they inflict, life in Kosovo is gradually normalized. It was noted that the supply with daily market needs is becoming more regular and that many measures are undertaken to better organize the supply of bread, milk and other life necessities. There is intense work underway to repair the telecommunication network, to improve the electric supply, which has been fine thanks to the teams that work daily on repairing the NATO-inflicted damage. It was concluded that all forces should be engaged even more for a quicker recovery and normalization of the situation in Kosovo. This morning, sometime around 10 a.m., in an area near Goražde, there were 2 strong explosions. This area was blocked by the S-4 units because it is thought that the explosions were the result of the fall of a NATO plane that had been heavily hit while flying over Yugoslavia. Simultaneously, in the area of Majevica, there was a strong explosion. According to eyewitness accounts, this was the strongest detonation since the beginning of the aggression. After the explosion, there was a lot of smoke. It is supposed that this plane fell on this area trying to reach Tuzla airport. One NATO plane fell today near Kadina Česma on the territory of the Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina between the townships of Lopara in Republika Srpska and Tuzla in the Federation of Bosnia. It is supposed that the anti-aircraft units of Yugoslavia hit the plane. The pilot attempted to get to the airport in Tuzla. The place is currently being flown over by other NATO planes, probably looking for the pilot.
Coming up next, State Department spokesman James Rubin on the military action in Yugoslavia. After